I think it's terribly wrong-headed to think of the principles of free speech and inclusion as in competition. I'll come back in a minute to why I think they're in tension at different times. But if you think about the most important strides we've made in this country towards inclusion, it has been precisely through the exercise of free speech. If you think of women winning the right to vote in the early 20th century, if you think of the civil rights movement, that was a really, really self-conscious embrace of free speech, using the tools of free speech, whether in marches, the sitting at a lunch counter is an exercise of free speech. The protests against the Vietnam War were exercises of free speech. And all of those went towards greater inclusion, particularly the civil rights movement and the women's movement. So without the safeguards of free speech, I think we would not be nearly as far as we are towards inclusion. That said, we have a generation of students now who have grown up being taught that the barriers to full inclusion are structural, that they're kind of built into the fabric of some of the ways we educate, the way society lives. We have neighborhoods that are segregated by economics and therefore race, if not deliberately segregated by law. So students have also grown aware that they need to push against the barriers to inclusion, which are very real. And they've also become aware, partly because we've learned a lot about psychological theory, that words can injure and do harm.